I'll call the meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we observe our moment of silence, I'd like to recognize the fact that Commissioner Stevens' father passed away several days ago, so he is taking care of attending the funeral services of his father. So please keep him in your thoughts and prayers. And now we'll observe a moment of silence, please. Thank you. Okay, we have roll call beginning with myself. I am here. Commissioner Smith, Doug?
Here.
Okay. Commissioner Culbertson?
Here.
Commissioner Mike Smith?
Here.
Okay. We have forums. Public comment. We have Mr. Joe Herring. Please come forward. State your name and address.
Morning, Commissioners. Joe Herring, Herring Surveying, 315 North 5th Street, Leavenworth, Kansas. Appreciate you letting me talk this morning. We have an agenda item on regulations, and it was presented to you guys as a board in a work session on May 31st. And out of that work session, direction was given to enforce some older regulations that probably caused more waves than anticipated or foreseen, and that's what we're trying to avoid here today is by approving a set of regulations without thorough discussion that it creates similar situations, because I know that's not what we want. We want to try to streamline and get everybody on the same page. Planning Commission did hear these regulations, of course. One commissioner suggested many times to table it because it was so in-depth and so many changes. And even staff suggested to the commission, you could break these items out and discuss them individually and vote on them individually. But, they didn't do that. They did approve it, and would definitely like to see that at least discussed and thorough. You start with definitions on it, and I did send an email, and I apologize for the late send, but trying to keep a busy schedule. The definition of natural features, I would like to see something stated about physical features. Fence lines, they are an investment to a farmer and to somebody out in the county. Structures, the ability to use them as a definition so we could use them into the regulation, which would be discussed as track split and boundary line adjustments. Didn't see that, but that's okay. Article 35 and preliminary plat discussions and applications, I've been here before. My concept of a pre-app meeting and submittal of a preliminary plat does not constitute that plat being approved. Never said it does, but it's been presented that way. What that does, it gives the developer the right to invest a serious amount of money with good faith that a very similar plan that has been submitted will be the one that goes forward, no matter if regulations change or not. It shouldn't affect them. Should be exempt from any regulation changes or new consideration to them. The article also discusses Class A, Class C. We have that classification. We should be using it. There should be a map that defines which ones are Class A and which ones are Class C, so everybody knows. And the Class C should be viewed as rural and maybe not as strict as those that are going to be up next to a city, which Class A is meant to be, and would eventually be annexed in and under city control. So at that point, yes, we need to be preparing for the city to come get those projects. Section 40, number 17 of it, puts in there that we have to have letters for water and power. That's common. The staff used to do it, now we have to do it, that's no problem. Gas, if it's available, Magellan or Atmos, whatever. But it also has fire in there. We have had that in place, the fire. We have had that enforced on us. It's not a regulation yet. And cross-access easements, one of the developers is here, has been enforced, and it's not a regulation to date. So.
Thank you.
please discuss this in thorough instead of just blanket. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Okay, that's all for public comments. So administrative business. I will begin administrative business today by recognizing Terry Lois Mashburn, who has received her Certified Kansas Register of Deeds. So I want to congratulate Terry Lois for that accomplishment.
Could I get a picture with the board?
Absolutely. Right on front. What's that? I'll stay.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Appreciate it.
All right. Moving right along. Mr. Lothry, do you have anything in admin business today? No. Commissioner Smith, anything today?
I visited with Representative Tim Johnson, and we were talking about the legislation that the commission had Mr. Van Perry's craft for water districts having to bid when it comes to a road project, and it failed. So he said that he would resubmit that, but I just wanted the consensus of the board that if we should send another letter of support for that legislation, or
I would
I don't see why not. It's
think
going in the
that
right
would
direction.
be, yes, I think that's something that should have happened a long time ago. So.
Yeah, I agree.
so
with
we
you.
got plenty of time
All right, yes.
before the legislation begins. But I just,
Okay.
before it got too much details talking with him, I
Yeah.
gave him a copy of what we had submitted. So
Okay, so Mr. Van Paris, would you help us make sure or update or craft of the?
I'll work with Commissioner Smith on that.
Okay, thank you very much.
thanks.
Okay, Commissioner Culberson, you have anything?
I just want to mention that we have been working with KAC with the LABTR
Yeah.
situation, and so they kind of started a 3-part mini-series or whatever you want to call it, advertising in the newspaper that they put out, just basically educating everybody about what LABTR is and where it started and the origins and everything about it. So now we've got KAC on board working toward that also. So
I participated in the Zoom meeting for that this past week, and I think
did too.
Mr. Lothry did as well. And
Mike and
yeah, he did.
And Jeff. I think Jeff did.
3 times.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
We accidentally signed in under
So
Mark's
we were
sign.
all there, and I think that hopefully we can find ways, and maybe potentially our local newspaper will cooperate with us in
That's a great idea.
in getting that information to the taxpayers and to the public, because there's a lot of good information in there about the history and about the impact. I think as we have an agenda item today, but it's, kind of talking about what impact this actually would have if the legislature would give us our allocation.
The money that was collected from this county.
Yes,
Oh,
the money,
that's-
yes, that.
And it's $3 to $4 million every year.
Right, so
For
just,
the last 20-some years.
I've just got one thing, Vicki.
Yes.
Different.
That's all I have.
To lead right into that, Monday I'll be interviewed on Lansing's cable channel, and one of the main topics is what we're discussing here about returning the funds and going in more detail. And I think one of the things that Commissioner Culberson's talking about is also that I've never seen the counties and the cities pulling together and trying to put that information out before the election in 2024. And I can assure every elected official that's in Topeka that's up for election, that is a question you're going to be asked. I hope you're prepared to answer.
And that's a good point. Working on this for the last 3 or 4 years, I've found almost every county and city has turned in a letter asking for the LBTR, but separately and at different times over the last
Together,
15
yeah.
years.
we need to.
So if we could get everybody at the same time.
That 2019 when we went to Raleigh County.
Yes,
Was
but
it
yes,
19? Right before the
2019.
pandemic.
Yep.
It was gaining a lot of traction back then, and then the pandemic hit,
Yeah.
and it just everything went on hold.
But we
Yes,
also
ma'am.
need the voters, not just the elected officials, but we need the public to send letters and to contact their
Representatives,
elected
yep.
officials and express their desire for that to happen. And because we just had a little chart that we just received that kind of talks about how much money right now the state of Kansas has in their coffers that they could actually use to bring that money back to the public that has already paid for it. They're being taxed twice. When it comes right down to it.
Commissioner Carter, you made an important thing they've talked about too, and I want to emphasize this again, what you just said. The elected officials in this room and throughout the county cities aren't going to get this passed. The people that are going to pass it are the citizens, because they're the ones that need to ask the questions in the county and the cities to the people that's up for election. Do you or don't you support returning the funds back to this area? It's a simple question. Yes or no?
Or how about if they will follow the law, KSA 792959
Yes.
and KSA 792964.
Yep.
It's a simple
Part of the question.
Are you going to break the law, or are you going to follow the law?
Yeah, yeah.
It's a yes or no.
And that's the crazy part. We're not asking for a new bill to be
Right.
presented.
We're asking they follow the law.
Just follow the law that's already on the book.
Yeah, that's good. Good discussion.
We could talk about this all day.
Yeah, we could.
And we
Sorry.
probably should. But we better move on.
Commissioners, do you happen to recall the dollar amount that they mentioned, that since they've started withholding those payments, how much it's tallied up to at this point?
Starts with a B.
In the billions?
$3
$3
billion.
Yes.
And how much excess funds does the state have this year?
$2.6 billion in excess
Wonder where they got
What a
revenue
coincidence.
right now that
Yeah.
came from our taxpayers but they actually, technically, you get taxed twice because we can't use those funds to help pay
Double
for
tax.
reducing your property taxes.
Yeah.
So,
That are in the current statutes required to be distributed, and specifically for property tax.
Relief.
right.
That's the whole reason for the law. Yeah. It's not hard.
Guess we can home rule out of some laws ourselves, huh?
If we could get, yes, wouldn't that be nice? Okay, now we're moving on to the consent agenda. Is there anything that needs to be removed this week from the consent agenda? If
Madam
not,
Chair, I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
a motion and a second. Begin voting with me. Aye.
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 Motion carries. All right. Now we're moving on to formal board action. We need to consider a motion to set the public hearing for the Leavenworth County budget on August 23rd, 2023 at 9 a.m.
This is just an action by the board authorizing me to go ahead and send it to the paper and for publication, and then we'll have the hearing at 9 o'clock on the 23rd for the county budget plus the special funds. In that same respect, I did get notification this morning that our RNR notices have been delivered to the post office to then be delivered to the residents of Leavenworth County. We did around 37 or 38,000 letters are going out this year.
Thank you.
I appreciate that.
Well, if there's nothing else, I'd like to make a motion to set the public hearing for the Leavenworth County budget on August 23rd, 2023 at 9 a.m.
Second.
A motion and a second. I'll begin voting. Aye.
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 Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Board.
Thank you.
Thanks, Janet.
Okay, now we consider a motion to approve a dining center contract with the Council on Aging and West Haven Baptist Church in Tonganoxie. Welcome, Connie.
Good morning, Commissioners. What you have before you is a contract to begin a new dining center contract with West Haven Baptist Church for fiscal year 2024. for our congregate dining site. This would replace our current dining site at the Florence Ryford Senior Center in Tonganoxie. It would be a $200 a month stipend that we would pay to help defray janitorial costs and trash hauling. It would save the county about $6,420. The Ryford Center has proposed currently to raise our rent there to $735 a month. West Haven has agreed to $200 a month. So I would hope that we would approve a contract with West Haven.
And it fits all your needs, Connie. Good.
It's a great location
Yeah.
for this.
Great
I
parking
like it a
lot.
lot better than downtown there.
Yeah.
And of course, the savings. And I think having it there, I think some of your clients will probably, meet some new people that, they can stay in contact and look after one another.
Yes,
At
and
church.
it allows us to access the church congregation who may or may not be receiving Meals on Wheels, but who qualify.
Right.
So I think it's a good
Yeah,
move.
me too.
So,
So we're just asking to give Connie approve Connie to sign the
Madam
contract.
Chair, I move that we approve a dining center contract with Council on Aging with West Haven Baptist Church in Tonganoxie.
Second.
Motion is second. Begin voting. Aye.
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 Okay, motion carries. Thank you, Connie.
Thanks, Connie. Good seeing you, ladies.
Thank you.
All right, now we need to consider a motion to approve Resolution 2023-20, amending Articles 3, 35, 40, 43, 50, 56, 60, 70, 80, and 85 of the 2006 Leavenworth County Zoning and Subdivision Regulations. Good morning, Amy and John.
Good morning, Madam Chairwoman and Commissioners. Before you is a request to amend the zoning and subdivision regulations, the articles that were just listed out. These amendments are brought to you in order to update our regulations to match what we are currently doing as part of our processes, but also to make certain processes a little bit simpler for people who are wanting to subdivide or split their property, specifically lot lines, which we have discussed extensively with the board and the Planning Commission up to this point. Try to make it short and sweet because, as you can see, there were a lot of changes that are proposed and that the Planning Commission did review and approve at their last meeting. The major changes before you is cleaning up our definition sections. The first one that I'd like to point out is we are adding a natural features definition. We did not have one, however, that phrase is used a few times in our regulations, so we wanted to define what that actually meant. I believe during the public comments section that was somewhat brought up by including physical features such as fence lines and structures. Staff did not include fence lines and structures in that definition because those things can change over time, whereas typical natural features are those that are features present in the topography of the land. Now, that being said, when somebody is requesting an exception for, say, a property line or something like that, that is a consideration that the Planning Commission can give that request if they so choose. Moving on, we did amend our application procedures to include primarily to include one digital copy and one paper copy. We no longer need the 16 copies of paper that we typically had. So we have removed that, and we've removed a lot of references to that as well. Another major change to our application process that was also brought up during public comments was the requirement that utility purveyance letters had to be submitted with the application. Current or previous practice was that county staff was responsible for contacting and obtaining those letters from their respective agencies. That is just not a very good policy. Sometimes we don't hear back from them. Sometimes, and that makes us the conveyance of that information. Frankly, when a surveyor or a property owner is laying out the lot configuration of their plat, they should know what the water districts, the fire districts, the utility companies as a whole would expect or need for the utilities located on that property. waiting for them to submit it and then having to go back and revise it just creates added time for everybody. So asking for that utility purveyance letter up front is important, and hopefully it will reduce time in reviewing the actual application. Another major change that we have requested, I'm trying to find it, but like I said, a lot of this was just cleanup. Another one is changing how we do exceptions for the subdivision and zoning regulations. Currently, we have interpreted that exceptions can only be requested during the plating process. However, when somebody's coming through and getting a track split or a boundary line adjustment, we want to try and avoid having them to go through the full plating process to request an exception. So we have now made it available to them to go to the Planning Commission to get an exception from the regulations if they so request. That would reduce their costs. They don't have to do a drainage study or anything like that by avoiding the plating process, but they still have to present their case to the Planning Commission to request that exception, which that is where exceptions should really be housed, is at the Planning Commission. Other than that, I don't want to get too much more into the weeds, so if you have specific questions, you can definitely ask. I do want to address some of the other comments that were discussed at that open questions comment about the preliminary and pre-app phase. While staff understands that, during the pre-application phase, property owners are coming in and they're trying to get guidance on how they should lay out their lots. They're proposing to us what they are wanting to do before they dump a lot of cost into the development phase. However, that being said, we cannot anticipate every little thing that could arise with that property. We can only look at it at a very sky level approach and say, yes, I think that will work. No, I don't think that will work. And that being said, to tie in something that was said 3 or 4 years ago to a development that is now going through the process is not just good practice, in my personal opinion. Obviously, regulations could have changed, interpretations could have changed. So the fact that you want to hold somebody's word to them 3 or 4 years from now is not in the best interest, I think. But
I think at the end of the day, the regulations have been presented over and over again, went through a public hearing phase. All of the issues were addressed at the Planning Commission level. Currently, there is an appellate process. If you don't like the regulations, you can appeal to the BOCC, whether that's at a preliminary or a final stage. So, again, at the end of the day, there is an appellate body. That body is you. So we've cleaned up what was in the regulations versus common practice. And again, as you heard in the study session, and as we had said in the Planning Commission, and again at the public hearing, this simply reflects what we currently do and makes the process a little bit simpler for those involved. And with that, we'd answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions?
We had received an email that some of these changes are being enforced on plats that are being presented right now. Are there any facts to that?
Well, I think specifically what they're referencing is the block length. And again, this is a preliminary stage. So the time to enforce that is at a preliminary stage. Whether that application was 4 years ago and we're just now getting to a preliminary stage, you need to address that. And again, if they don't want to address that block length or anything within the subdivision regulations, they have an appellate body and they have a exception component to their approval process that they simply write a narrative and then you put it in front of the Planning Commission and then again in front of the BOCC, whether those exceptions want to be accepted or not.
What about fire response?
Well, fire response is just that. We typically have done that, and every subdivision does that. You ask the fire district for their opinion on that particular subdivision, and
well, it looks like it's a change. It looks like it's being added now.
It's always been part of the process. It simply is the responsibility of the developer to attain that now.
And okay, so what, this fire district could say, no, we don't want to serve this subdivision?
Well, the fire district can say that they don't want to serve the subdivision or they can't serve the subdivision, which is the intent of the notification.
Has that ever happened?
It hasn't
Fire
happened.
department is going to refuse to come to a new home?
Again, it hasn't happened to my knowledge.
Are we going to add the sheriff to see if the sheriff can provide law enforcement to the area? Because, I mean, this is a fire department. They're going to show up if there's a call.
Well, I think the intent there is to know what they're dealing with, and if the apparatus, the fire apparatus there isn't adequate for suppression, they want to have the ability to comment on that so that somebody knows, specifically the developer and the approving body, that we may have a deficiency here, or this is what we need to provide protection in that particular area.
Well, there's some water districts in the county that refuse. It's part of their policy. They will not provide fire protection.
It doesn't necessarily have to limit itself just to the water district. There are other options available to a developer to address fire suppression that are both code compliant and acceptable to fire departments.
I think we're getting on too far in on this fire response because we have township fire departments. They will show up. You know, and then.
To be clear, we have always sent it to fire districts as part of the review process. This is just requiring the applicant to contact the fire district instead of staff.
Okay. And then what do you do on water districts when you're talking about putting up a bond or having the water districts collect a bond?
Well, what we're trying to do is remove the county from that bonding requirement, as we talked about in the study session. I think that was the intent of the board. As I recall, you guys didn't want to collect that bond as it stands in the regulations today. No. Today, it requires a bond be collected by the county for those improvements.
Okay, but if the water district doesn't want it, then it won't be necessary. It won't hold up a plat, correct?
No, that is entirely up to the water district. If they want to collect a bond for the improvements, it is their opportunity to do that. If they don't want to, and they simply send us a letter that we can supply facilities to this particular area. Specifically, if you have 42 lots, you'd need 42 lots, not 10% or 15%, and plat that whole thing. You would have to actually be able to provide utilities for the entire platted area.
But if it's a 5-acre tract, even a 2.5, the BZA approved 2.5 acres to drill a well.
Well, again, BZA can operate outside the confines of what we can.
Yeah.
We're trying to set a minimum requirement in the regulations. If they want to go outside that, there is an appellate process either through the BZA or through the Board of County Commissioners.
But some of these subdivisions are 5 acres, and you can drill a well.
You can, and that's allowable under the regulations.
Okay. And what else? Inadequate water and sewer. And then there was one on here about the too steep to develop lots. Is there something in the regulations about that?
We do have regulations. It's our sensitive land regulations. We are not proposing any changes to those. As a rule of fact, we very rarely touch those regulations because it's really intended for subdivisions where the vast majority of the land being developed is at a slope of 10% or more.
Okay.
And we don't typically see that. But we could, and that's where those regulations come into play.
Yeah, I know. We wouldn't have Timberlake subdivision if that was enforced.
Well, again, we haven't proposed any changes to that.
Okay. And then on inadequate right-of-way, I thought seen something on that. Oh, inadequate right-of-way. What does that mean? It's in our current regulation.
That's actually from state statute. That means if you have an adjoining right-of-way that does not meet the minimum standard, then during the platting process, you may request that right-of-way. That isn't currently our practice. We only do that on the interior parts of subdivisions, not on exterior roads.
Okay, so if you got an exterior road that's only got 20 foot of right-of-way, you'll still allow somebody to build on it.
That has been the practice as I understand it.
Okay. Okay. All right. Oh, and then notice you put a change that our comp plan is going to be comprehensive plan instead of a guide. I mean, are we going to use it as a plan instead of a guide, or?
Well, a comprehensive plan is typically titled that, a comprehensive plan in most jurisdictions that you go to. A comprehensive plan is a visioning document. It's not an administrative one. So you take the overall view when you're dealing with a comprehensive plan, you weigh it in its entirety, and then you use your subdivision regulations as your administrative component to enforce the ideas contained in that comp plan.
So if we're going to use it as a plan instead of a guide, shouldn't we rezone the county to what the comprehensive plan is?
Well, again, I don't know that that's practice in any place I've ever seen, and it may be a matter of semantics. I mean, again, it's typically known as a comprehensive plan, the idea being that it's a generalized plan, not a specific plan.
Okay.
I don't have any questions. Vicky, I've read it.
Jeff?
Nope.
Everybody feel they've had a chance to look through all this?
I looked at it.
I did, Doug.
Well, I do.
Marked it up pretty good in yellow.
Well, yeah, yellow and black.
Anything else? Any other questions for staff? Go ahead.
Well, the Class A, Class C subdivisions.
Sure. So
I mean, it's in here. So what are we doing currently on that?
So Class A and Class C subdivisions are defined in our regulations on how to determine the boundaries of them. Class A subdivisions are those within 660 feet of any city limits within the county. So those subdivisions are really supposed to be designed to the corresponding city's design standards. We do notify the city when we do have a subdivision going within that area to see what, if any, additional requirements they would require that subdivision to meet. Meaning, are they going to add additional street requirements like curb and gutter, sidewalks, anything like that? Additionally, we also request to see if they are going to require them to hook into city sewer and water. That is up to the cities. They have to respond back to us with the requirements, if any, that they would impose on that subdivision. Class C is every other subdivision within the county, so every other subdivision outside of that 660-foot boundary. And those really are what these regulations are written for.
Okay. So, like urban growth areas or urban growth management areas is 3 miles from the city.
Right.
And we don't use that.
No, we used to have a Class B category that was that. However, that was removed some time ago. I don't know off the top of my head. So we are now just down to Class A and Class B.
Okay, so we're just within 600 feet is the only thing that's going to cover Class A.
660 feet, it's a statutory requirement, right?
So that's pretty limited then on our Class A.
And Class C is everything else.
Okay. So that's the only difference between Class A and Class C is notifying the city to see if they want to make recommendations or.
Well, it's within their rights to require the applicant
Right.
to comply with their technical specifications. That would include sanitary sewer, water, curbs, gutters, drainage structures, streets that meet their design criteria. If they want to enforce that or pull them into the city with an annexation agreement, they certainly are within their statutory rights to do so.
And they probably should.
We would agree.
Commissioners, it's been probably 5 years or so ago, but I can remember one of those coming in. The county was recommending streetlights and sidewalks and whatnot, and then the city said that they didn't require it. So that would be an example of where the city code would have come into play if the city would have said yes, but the city allowed them to not do that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So typically, that's to encourage that higher density development that occurs just outside of communities. It really should be within the communities
And it
themselves.
should be annexed.
Yes.
That would be the better thing.
Yep.
Okay. So back on your exceptions. So you're saying we can come in and apply for an exception before they spend all this money on a plat and design and.
Well, during the plating process is when the exception narrative goes before the board. We as staff can't approve an exception. We simply
Right.
turn it in.
That's what I'm saying. It could go to the planning commission
Right.
on a preliminary.
Yes. And a specific approval will be done by the planning commission. They'll make a motion to approve or deny the exceptions requested. Now, the applicant has to create the narrative for that exception. Staff simply turns it
Right.
in.
Okay. And then on private roads, we're asking for design.
We're not asking for design. What that is a engineering checklist based on the current criteria that we got from the county engineer. Those components are what make up a basic plan, not design. I understand they come from AASHTO
Right, that
standards.
was-
Bill is here. He could probably speak
Doing
to
AASHTO
that.
standards.
AASHTO has something for that.
No, Commissioners, those aren't actually to any AASHTO standards. So what we looked at from a staff perspective is what constitutes an engineering plan set. So what items are required within an engineering design to make a constructible plan set. And so what we did is we looked at about 7 or 8 other counties. I know we looked at Shawnee, Douglas, Jefferson, Riley, Franklin, Pottawatomie counties to see what they did. It appeared that everybody's regulations references back to a KAC document written by Norm Bowers years ago that outlined what is the minimum criteria that the Board of Technical Professions would accept as an engineering plan set. And so we took that article and the other counties' information, and we just created a checklist. So you do not have to design a cross-access easement to a county standard. We still do require you to make a connection within your right-of-way to a driveway standard within the county, because that is future maintenance of the county road department. So we are responsible for the culvert and that area between the right-of-way and the roadway. And we do look at, is this plan constructible? Are there gas lines? For example, we have one recently where there's a gas line, a Magellan gas line. So we just need the elevation to show on that plan to make sure that it has 48 inches of clearance. But we do not require 6 inches of compacted AB3 or AASHTO standards, or you can have chip and seal, you can have gravel, you can do 3 inches of compacted base, which isn't even testable from a construction engineering standpoint, from a nuclear gauge density test, from what I understand, but I've been told. So it opens up that the allowance of all of these different design standards. But you do need to have the information within that plan set that you could hand to a contractor or to the county to recreate it. It needs to have horizontal control. It needs to have vertical control. It needs to have cross sections. It needs to have the information within your vertical curves in order to be able to recreate those vertical curves to make sure that the road comes in to the county roadway and through the subdivision. So just those things that would be necessary for a contractor to build it is what we are looking at, not whether or not it meets a county standard. None of the ones that we've received meet a county standard, but also a lot of the ones we've received for cross-access easements, the plans don't meet what the KAC has put out and what Norm put out as the guidance of the Board of Technical Professions of constituting a full, what would be considered a plan set. Current regulations require you to have an engineered plan set, and so the checklist just outlines what we consider to be an engineering checklist.
So do you get as-built plans off of these after they're done?
Yes, sometimes we have in the past we get a letter from the engineer prior to the issuance of building permits that says they were built to the design standards of the design that they put out or produced.
Okay.
So it's not a full as-built, but we do get an affirmative statement. Mr. Van Paris has reviewed those with me in the past to make sure the affirmative statement was adequate, and we get that statement basically certifying that whatever was their design is what was constructed.
Okay, so that doesn't mean that they're going to approach us 10 years from now and want the county to take over the maintenance because this road was built to a standard?
These roads are not being built to a standard.
Okay. I just want to protect the county here on this one, because
that's another thing that we had been requesting as part of our small once-over of these things to see if they were adequate, is we did receive some that say private driveway. These are not private driveways. These are cross-access easements. These are not private roads. Road implies that it has some connotation to a county. So we ensure that every cross-access easement plan set that we have is titled a cross-access easement. These are not county roads. These are not designed to county standards. These are not reviewed by county staff to make sure that they do meet AASHTO standards. So we do make them have the title somewhere within the cover page that says cross-access easement.
Okay, so if one of these subdivisions approached the county about taking over the road, would the county do any core testing or anything, or what would you do?
I would not do anything. I would say you need to be able, if you wanted to build it to a county standard, you would need to have all of your testing that we currently require for a county standard in place with a design that met county specifications. Otherwise, in order for one of these to be accepted as a county roadway, you would need to tear it out and start over and have a new design completed and new construction that met county standards, which has been the case, which would be the case in the future. I would not. It would be at the cost of the subdivision HOA or the developer.
Well, I hope the future boards will back you on that, because we've got a couple of them in the county that every time commissioners change, they come in and want us to take over the road.
Well, we have requests since we've changed the policy to allow cross-access easements. We've had several of them that were built to, or at least one specifically that was built to a gravel standard, and now that those lots are being sold, we have already received requests about what that would take to bring that to a county standard. It would take a full reconstruction and a new design, and go all the way back through the process of road development in order for that to become a county road.
And I'm fine with these. I just don't want them to fall back on the taxpayer.
I don't either.
You know, they were put in, you know, at a savings to the developer, and they need to just live with it. It shouldn't be up to the taxpayers to subsidize
It needs
this.
to be made clear to people.
And that's why I support putting signs up that this is a private road,
Yes.
no county maintenance. I don't care if it's a billboard. Explain it all.
There are actually statements in the HOA elements of every one of these cross-access easements that state just that it will never be under county maintenance and that it is privately maintained, and that goes through legal review prior to submittal to the Planning Commission.
Is that on the plat or on each deed?
There is also a notation put on the plat saying that this is a cross-access easement.
But what about, you know, third, fourth owner down the road? Is it on the deed of the property?
Well, it's still filed with the HOA and it's on the face of the plat, so it should
Okay.
come up in any of the title work that happens.
And I know people don't read their title work. So.
We will get. I can assure you, Commissioner, that we will get that request.
I think it needs to just be plastered everywhere. I don't care if you have bumper stickers. Because I just know what's going to happen. I've been here too long to see it. And, you know, if you get enough commissioners to sympathize with it, then they'll take it over. And that's not right. It should never happen.
Bill, we are putting signs out to notate that those are private in nature, not county maintained roads.
Yes, we did verify. We went to each one of them. We produced a map in GIS. We had our sign technician go around and make sure that we had provided. So we do provide the stop sign and the road ID sign for the contractor to put up for every road. And so we provided them the private roadway signage. Some of them, I think there was at least one that wasn't put up. And so we did go around and verify and put up the ones that were missing.
And that's fine. I mean, we are getting taxes off of it. I can see a stop sign. That's a safety issue coming out onto the road, and the street sign for 911, but mainly the sign that says this is not county maintenance. Don't expect anything.
Yep.
So, and that's why my concern was I didn't want to get too involved with how the roads were built, so that it doesn't come back on us.
You have to pay for it.
Do we have any other questions for John, Amy, or Bill?
I don't.
Okay, if not, I will entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve Resolution 2023-20, amending Articles 3, 35, 40, 43, 50, 56, 60, 70, 80, and 85 of the 2006 Leavenworth County Zoning and Subdivision Regulations.
Second.
Motion is second. We'll begin voting with myself. Aye. Commissioner Smith?
No.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Okay, we need to consider a motion to approve an agreement with FHWA for 80% of the cost of the federal state Safe Streets for All study, and with the county paying 10% of the cost in the amount of $35,000. Hi, Bill.
Commissioners, today for your consideration is the contractual agreement with the Federal Highway Administration for 80% of the cost share dollars for the Safe Streets for All study. As you guys remember, we did approve a 10% match from KDOT, so it is an 80-10-10 project. This grant is for $280,000 towards the cost of that study. We are eager to get this thing started because once we have finally gotten through this review process, as you guys are aware, it's been going on for probably 6 or 9 months now, I would say. And so
Yep.
these federal processes are slow, and the KDOT processes, due to contractual, we haven't gotten those agreements back for either our cost share program or the most recent HRRR award. So once this is executed, we can send out an RFP, and we can engage a engineering firm to start to complete this work.
Questions?
Have any questions on the 80% grant?
Yeah.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve an agreement with Federal Highway Administration for 80% of the cost of the federal safe streets for all studies of Leavenworth County, paying 10% of the cost in the amount of $35,000.
Second.
Motion is second. I'll begin voting with myself. Aye.
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 Motion carries. Okay.
Thanks, Bill.
We're going to skip on down to
Thanks, Bill.
additional public comment so that we don't have to have Mrs. Hui wait for us. So, Lynn, Hui?
I'm Lin Hui, and I'm the owner and developer of the Garden Villa subdivision. And I have sent an email to commissioners and staff, and I just want to make sure that you have read my email. And I just want to reiterate a couple of my points here. And so I have been working on this project since 2019. And I am not asking the board to, I'm not asking for a subdivision to be officially heard, but I like the opportunity to be able to discuss the project with the board as a whole in a meeting, much like the developer, Mr. Riley, was able to speak at a work session previously that I attended. And so I have been, I've spent tens of thousands of dollars on this project since 2019, and all of a sudden, I was asked to put additional roads to my project, which I have been through pre-application meetings and it has been commented on, and nobody ever mentioned anything about additional roads. And so basically, there's two points that I like to make is since my project has been ongoing for so long, I would like to be able to continue as the previous plan that I have submitted. And then when I look at the additional road that they are requesting me to do, it's going to cost me like at least another $400,000 to the road that I don't think is really necessary because my development or subdivision is completely in the rural area, which I have heard you guys discuss about Class A and Class C, and my subdivision is definitely in the Class C category. And so there are two roads that are around there on my subdivision, Stewart Road and 254th Road. They both run a long way, no turnaround area. So my subdivision being very close to them, I don't understand why, they need additional road for turning around or whatever they were telling me. And because I think that is completely unnecessary, and I wanted the opportunity to explain to the board, and if I could, go forward with my plan originally without spending additional dollar to plan new road, and then eventually I don't really need those roads anyway. And so I would appreciate the opportunity to be able to be on the agenda to discuss my project as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I don't believe we have any further requests for public comment. So,
Ready for executive session?
ready to entertain a motion
Better
for
read
executive
this one.
session.
This one's different. I move that this board recess from open session and go into the closed executive session for a preliminary discussion on the acquisition of real property as justified by KSA 754319B6, and that this board resume and open in the meeting room at 10:20. Present in the executive session will be Commissioners Jeff Culverson, Vicki Cos, Doug Smith, Mike Smith, and present also will be County Administrator Mark Laughley and Senior County Counselor David Van Paries. And does Bill Knoll need to be in this? And Bill Knoll.
Before we set the time for that, I think we had, Bobby, did you want to say something, public comment? One more public comment?
Okay, then I'll wait on a second.
We got them.
We'll wait on. Reset
We
the
need to
time
go
and wait
into-
on
we
a
need to
second.
go into a second, don't we?
Bob Heckman, 29213 195th Street.
I just got a question. Has Watkins Sea Ranch been moved to around 193rd and Lecompton Road? Has it been approved?
It hasn't shown up yet. They haven't got planning zoning yet.
Well, I sent you something you might want to share. The traffic out there is just unbelievable for the last several months. And I didn't know if it's been approved, and I didn't get a letter. Or
Yeah.
Larry, I know I talked to Larry. He did not.
Stop in planning and zoning and talk to them about where it's at. I know they turned something in, but it's not been finalized or even
But
put through.
we will not. Well, to me, it seems like it's finalized because it's going.
Yeah. Talk to them and tell them that because they haven't.
Are they just right over here?
Yeah, planning and zoning right across the hall.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, good to see you.
I'll second Doug's.
Have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion is second. I'll begin voting aye.
Commissioners, did you set a time and when you would return?
Oh.
10:20. I did.
Okay.
Is that enough time?
Yes.
Second.
No, aye.
Voting. Aye.
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 All right, let the record show that we have returned to regular session at 10:20. No decisions were made. Discussion was limited to preliminary discussions on acquisition of real property.
Okay. All right, well, now we are down to the presentations and discussion portion. Doug, do you have anything to share?
Just done the fair and attended the senior day.
Good.
Walk on. It's pretty warm down there that day. There was a good crowd, good entertainment, and that's about it.
Jeff, anything?
No, other than like I was talking about, we attended the Zoom meeting with KAC about the LAVTR, and that's going pretty good.
Yeah.
Getting basically just public education.
Yeah. I was
Get something done now, we'll never get anything done.
That's right.
Now's the time.
Yeah, I was with Jeff on that. And so it's a good start for us. Just a couple of things, man. Chair, again, Monday I'll be doing Mover and Shakers, which is the Lansing government channel. We'll be talking about a lot of issues, including demand transfers and things like that. On another note, on a more smiley note, the Women's Division of the Lansing Leavenworth Chamber of Commerce is doing a lip sync contest. Tickets are available at the Chamber, $30 a piece, $40 a door. It's on Saturday at 6 p.m. Leavenworth Mayor Wilson and myself have teamed up to become part of this again. So if you get a chance, come down and get a good laugh. That's all I have.
Where's it at?
Eagles.
Eagles.
And you're going to participate?
Me and Mayor Wilson doing one together.
I'll be there.
I'll let you sit in the back,
I
Doug.
will be
Get your
there.
tickets. They're not sold out yet.
Yeah.
And they're still looking for acts if you want to do something yourself.
Oh, no, this
Okay,
is
checking.
just for
Audience participation. That's
no
all.
participation. I will just be there to support you.
Yeah, I bet.
Okay, well, I did the Transit Authority meeting last Wednesday afternoon, and then yesterday we also had a work session. We might point out we all
Oh,
had
that's right. We were here yesterday.
we
Oh,
were
yeah,
here
that's
yesterday afternoon to do the.
That's a good one. Yeah.
So, we don't have anything else, then I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Again, voting with myself, aye.
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 We are adjourned. Thank you very much.